I hope you enjoy my stories. Instead of just clicking thumbs down, please comment and share how we can do better. If you do like our video, then please like and subscribe.
HOA not being transparent about rental cap. Our 30-unit condo Washington State added a 6-slot rental cap back in 2011.
At the time, units were sitting unsold, and they feared that they could potentially limit the buyer pool without a cap, since it can impact those who need FHA loans. Turns out it was kinda pointless. You can have as much as 50% of the building rented, and it's a moot point because it's a wealthy neighborhood with condos in the building selling for nearly $1 million.
The building doesn't qualify for FHA regardless of the cap.
Anyways, 6 of 6 slots have been taken. I asked to be on the waiting list 2 years ago.
I was told by the HOA president all I needed to do was call the guy from the management company. I'll call him Bob, so he could put me on the list. I called Bob and confusingly told me I had 30 days to move out.
What? I reminded him no slots were available and I just wanted to be on the waiting list. Why would I need to move out to get on a waiting list?
He corrected himself and told me he'd put me on the waiting list. I really should have got that in writing.
2 years go by.
At some point, I found out through my own research that one of the 6 units taking up slots had been sold, which should have opened up a slot for me, but they never reached out.
Turns out they forgot about me.
In asking around, I realized they had forgot about another woman, Sally, who had also been on the waiting list before me.
In her case, she had written correspondence with Bob to prove it.
Bob had forgot about both of us.
There was no physical waiting list, and although it says it should be discussed in every HOA meeting, it never was.
What ended up happening was that when one of the slots opened up, Bob gave it to a new owner who had bought a unit couple months prior. Bob's company was also managing that rental and getting a cut, which seems pretty FD up to me. So essentially, he skipped 2 people who had been on the waiting list for years and gave it to a new owner. His company had a financial incentive to give a slot to. Naturally, Sally and I both caused a stink about it. Months went by without any real answers from Bob or the HOA president. They also weren't being transparent with me about which units were taking up slots. I had to look through old property tax records to figure it out and compare with the list of residents.
In digging through these records, I discovered something. One of the rental cap rules clearly states that if a rental unit's ownership changes through any legal filing, they lose their rental slot as soon as their current lease ends. Turns out, 2 of the units taking up rental slots had been owned by elderly people.
Coincidentally, both units transferred ownership to family when they passed away. Coincidentally, in both instances, the family transferred ownership to LLCs. I brought this up to the HOA and Bob.
2 slots had a change in ownership, and that should now mean there are 2 vacant slots. At this point, they hired legal to look into it.
As far as I know, legal confirmed what I told them.
Despite the HOA not being transparent, I found out one of those LLCs had their rental lease end. That should clearly mean their slot is now open. I pointed this out to the HOA president, and she admitted that they gave them notice that they may have lost their rental slot and asked them to respond.
They ignored them and put up a posting, looking for a new renter.
The HOA did ultimately grant me a 1-year hardship exception, so I can find a renter, but my argument to them was that if anyone should have gotten the exception, it's the unit Bob allowed to leapfrog the waiting list. My analogy was that it's like I had a golden ticket to enter the chocolate factory. An Oompa Loompa accidentally let someone in without a ticket, and now they are making an exception to let me in. Dude, the Oompa Loompa already made the exception. I'm the one with the golden ticket.
No response. Now I'm at the point where I'm just trying to sell the condo and naturally, prospective buyers are interested in the possibility to rent.
I asked both the HOA and Bob to give me a clear answer on if all 6 slots are currently taken and if anyone was on the rental list.
Their response to me was infuriating. There is an amendment being considered that would require ownership of 2 years before going on the rental waiting list.
It is premature to discuss further with board members or management at Dom's company, Nebla's company. Naturally, this makes no effing sense. 1. How can you use a hypothetical new rule to tell a buyer they can't get on a waiting list? 2. Nobody asked for this. It solves nothing. Telling new buyers they need to wait 2 years doesn't solve the problem of Bob being incompetent.
3. They are now actively hindering my ability to sell the condo by driving away investors who would want it as a rental.
I pointed out the irony of a rental cap being set up out of fear of keeping FHA buyers out of the buyer pool, only to result in keeping investors out of the buyer pool.
No response.
So the 2 buyers interested for the purpose of renting, we've just had to turn away. It's incredibly frustrating because as far as I'm concerned, one of those 6 slots should actually be open because the LLC gave up their slot.
And as far as I know, nobody is currently on the waiting list. Also, one of the other units that was taking up a slot recently sold, so they should be giving up their slot as soon as it vacates. But without the HOA giving us clarity, it's hard to give a clear answer to buyers.
Also, they are using HOA dollars for whatever lawyer they are consulting with, but it's been months and they claim they are still waiting for answers. HOA threatening to change rules, so I am forced to remove my doorbell camera.
Hello.
I currently rent a condo in a community where about 85% of the units are owned and occupied by retirees.
I 32 female been in past situations where I didn't feel safe, and so I always have security in my place.
For context, the building has exterior cameras and a code or key fob is needed to access the interior of the building. However, sometimes people let strangers in.
I have had instances where someone is knocking on my door late at night, and when I go to look through the peephole they are gone. This happened a couple of times, which lead me to the decision to get a doorbell camera. I do not record, I just get alerts when someone is in front of my door so I can see who it is. Recently, I was asked by my HOA to remove this because of privacy concerns.
When no one is at my door, all I see is the literal wall across the hallway. There is nothing in the HOA bylaws stating I can't have the camera, but they said if I don't remove it, then they will amend the bylaws, so I am forced to. I guess my question is, can they enforce something like this when it is directly related to my safety?
Even though there are cameras outside the building, what if it is someone that lives here that is coming to my door?
Update. Thank you for all of the responses and for most of you being patient with me. As I am still learning how this works, since I've never been involved with an HOA, I spoke to my landlord, and they are thinking I should just concede and take down the camera.
Probably going to go with the actual peephole camera that isn't noticeable. But thanks again, lots of good info and insight. Update 2. My landlords have since come around and are now on my side of wanting to force the HOA into a vote. They think that this, in addition to some other recent issues, is starting to lean towards harassment. Interested to see how the board handles being challenged. Before we bought our place back in June 2021, we have been trying to get past our flooring violation. The rules in the CC&Rs say rolled carpet or sheet vinyl that reaches 70 sound test rating, STC.
15 years ago, someone installed ceramic tiles in the kitchen and living room.
Anyways, we talked to many flooring companies, and they told us vinyl planks were best with the attached padded underlay.
Our HOA immediately said no. So we went back around to the flooring companies, and most told us no, that sheet vinyl would cost 10 keys, because it would be hard to get the floor that smooth again. Anywho, finally, Home Depot said they would do it at a lower price, and the HOA finally agreed.
Well, when Home Depot actually got here to do the work, they refused, said it was too much, and we need licensed contractors, and again that vinyl planks are better.
We took all this information back to the HOA, mind you, all this time. We have only spoke with our actual board members for no more than 5 minutes. We are only permitted to talk to the property management that ignores us half the time. They actually forwarded us to their attorney simply because I think they were tired of talking to us.
So the HOA attorney decided to make a waiver with the HOA board members that says our neighbors below have to sign off on a waiver, saying that if our new floor bothers them, it's up to them to legally come after us, and the HOA will not help them.
Our neighbors that also think this whole situation is weird signed off on the papers. The planks we found literally reach 71 sound test rating. This exceeds the CC&Rs.
So we sent all this to HOA. Attorney thought what more would be needed. Gave all the specs and details. Well, apparently we missed in the wording that we had to resend this neighbor approval back to the property management to then now get it approved by the board members. Basically an approval on an approval.
We did not understand this, and we started the work.
Now we have half cement floor and half nice looking floor. No baseboards and our washer and dryer cannot be plugged in.
The property management has told us to cease all work, and that they would update us later, and they threatened us with legal fines if we attempted any more work. How long are we supposed to live like this? We cannot deal any more with this stress. The day when they told us to stop all work, I literally got home and burst into tears. Also, the attorney told us we were absolute idiots in so many words.
I have never felt so belittled in my entire life.
HOA charging me to repaint my garage the same color. In hindsight, maybe I shouldn't have reached out to them in the first place.
I'm selling my house soon and working on making it look a bit nicer.
My garage door is really faded and doesn't look great, so I submitted a ticket on my HOA website asking for the color of the door to repaint it.
They responded by saying they could give me the paint color, but first I needed it approval from all my neighbors, and then submit that with a check for $200 for the review fee.
It's not even about the money, more the audacity that they would make it difficult to make my home look better. Anyone have any ideas for some malicious compliance? Edits update. I appreciate all the helpful and funny advice.
I'm going with the majority opinion here, which seems to be, F them, just paint it.
Dear HOA, I think there may be a miscommunication here.
In order to maintain both high property standards and HOA compliance, I wish to repaint at my own expense my garage door.
I plan to use the exact color. It already is one required by the HOA, but I'd be told to pay $200 to find out what color that is. I must also hassle all my neighbors to see if they mind my garage door looking exactly the same, but fresher.
That's like getting their permission to mow my lawn or wash my windows.
Since this color is designated by the HOA, I'm surprised it's not readily available information as it should be.
I'm also surprised that a fee is required to maintain, not change this feature.
I'm deeply hoping there's a misunderstanding at play. Please advise me so I can determine how to proceed. I'd rather not spend the $200 to find out a set of paint colors we should already have access to, but if that's what it takes to hire a lawyer to force the information public to all residents, then that's what I'll have to do.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.